Guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to basically try and go over some things that'll hopefully make your life a little bit easier when you're getting started with AngularJS. So what I've done, I've created a basic sort of template structure here. I'm going to forward over the source code once we're done, so you've got a hold of that. But basically what it is, it's an Ionic project, which obviously that means it's a Cordova one. This is a basic Cordova one, so you got your typical sort of config.xml. And everything else. And then what's happened is I've jumped on in here, and instead of using the normal automatic generated Ionic template stuff, what I've done is I've moved all of the data out of there into here, and I've generated a new project using the Angular Cg-Angular human generator. So the idea of that is that'll allow us to do some, so when this project starts getting huge, it's going to make some big changes to how the project's structured, slightly different from a lot of Angular apps, but certainly something that I've discovered that is sort of necessary once you start getting to a certain size. It makes life a lot easier to develop in the long run. So anyway, so what we're going to do today is have a look at the human generator. First of all, let's have a quick look at their GitHub page. So let's go Cg-Angular. This is going to be your friend. So what you want to look at is obviously make yourself very familiar with this page, how to get it all set up and everything else. But what the keys are here is running the generator. So once you've got it installed, what we're going to be looking at today is directives. We're going to be looking a little bit at partials, which are basically just sort of MVC type views and controllers automatically generated, and also services, which are sort of like a singleton situation that you can pass around, different bits of code really easily and make things more modular. We're not going to cover the filters modules, and you probably will never use modals because you'll be using the Ionic framework, so we're not going to be talking about them. So anyway, so we're going to cover those three things. So look, first things first, let's jump on in here. You can see we've got not much. We'll get to that in a sec. And we're going to generate our first view and controller. So that's going to be a partial. So to do that, we type yo Cg-Angular and we type in partial. And now make sure you're also in the www directory because it'll generate it wherever it stands. So enter the name. We'll just call this one view1. The root will be /view1. Where we'd like the partial set. Use the default, and off we go. Cool. So what we've got in here now, we've got in the partial folder, it's automatically generated the view1 folder, which contains all of the other bits and pieces that are grouped to view1. So you can have your own custom view1 CSS as part of this less generator. You get testing, which is something we're going to be talking about and going to try and do a lot more of going through this so that we can make sure we're not breaking other people's work. We get the basic HTML template, and we also get the controller for view1. So what we can do is we can have a look at this now. So we're going to run grunt serve as part of the human generator, which is going to sort of just watch the files and automatically do a library load when things change. And we don't have much. Obviously we've got view1. If we try to move away from view1, there we go. You'll see that it automatically goes, hey, we haven't got ourselves a proper path, so we're going to go to view1 or view5. Now that is determined over here what the home is. So basically it's like an if-else statement. And this is what this bit of code the generator added in. And I've just before this, I've set up this thing to make sure that view1 was our home page. So what we start doing is making some changes to this now. So we've got view1. Let's just do a quick little thing. We should be able to put a h1 in. Just go test. Jump over here. Now this should library load, but for some reason it didn't. Hang on a second. Okay, so solve the problem. What we need to do is basically, obviously, because we're using the Ionic framework, we need to wrap everything in an Ion view for it to work. So what I've done is jumped up here to the Ionic template folder, jump on templates, and the reason why I've kept this thing around is because it's pretty handy to get a very quick bit of code that we can use to throw in. So what we'll do, we'll throw this code in here, click save, and then jump back over to over here, and cool. So we've got a little box, and if we jump back into WebStorm, we'll see that, okay, so we've got this paragraph here, and it's got some other bits and pieces from it. So why don't we just delete all of that out of there at the moment? So we've got Ion content and Ion view. Then we go h1 and just do hello world. Save that, and then jump back over. And there we go. Cool. So we got our library loading happening. And we know that we're up and running with something to do. So look, first things first, like I said, we've got the partials. So normally what you're going to do in JavaScript, you're going to have your code, which is pretty messy and then sort of links into everything. So we'll close all this stuff down, close all of that down, and we'll just jump back over here and we're going to focus on view 1. So what we've got the view, and we've got its controller that's linked in. Now the controller, which is view 1 control, is linked into the view. Okay. Sorry, is linked into the view by what's supposed to be up here, which is going to be an ng controller directive. Now you need to give it the same name that's on over here. So view 1 control, you can copy and paste it just for our sanity. View 1 control, and now what that does, that will link all of the code that comes under this to this view 1 controller and allow access to this scope variable. Now that probably all seems a little bit confusing at the moment, but that's okay. So look, what we've got is we've got this stuff here, we've got hello world, and we can print out a bit of code saying like, we go name. Okay, we can come over here to the controller, we can do $scope.name equals test. Now, we jump back on over to here. There we go. We've got hello world and we've got that test there. So we can now change that test to hello again. There. And that automatically updates it over there. Okay, so very cool. Now, the reason why you may have noticed that the live updating hasn't been working is because part of the live updating is it keeps an eye on your linting here. So what you need to do is we'll need to make sure that that's right. And that's cool. And then we jump back over to here. And we'll do another hello again, and we'll do test. I should reload. There we go. Okay, cool. So, all right, so we're up and running in a big way there. We've got stuff linked up to the UI with the controller and the generator. We're using the Ionic framework with the partials. So let's display a little list, and we're going to start getting into the directives and the other bits and pieces. So we're going to go, we'll call it $scope.goodthings equals, and we'll make an array, and we'll have berries, we'll have bunnies, and we'll have puppies. So, whoop, that's terrible. Okay, cool. Now make sure we've got our linting all right, and if we jump back over to here, and we've got the Ion content, we'll delete all of what we've got. We'll go div, we'll give it a class of a list. Inside that, we'll go div, we'll give it a class of an item, so it's a list item. And what we want to do is we want to repeat these list items. So we're going to type in ng repeat, and it's going to be, what have we got? We've got an item in good things. So that needs to be the same as that there. Okay, cool. So now what we've got now, we've got this item variable, which will be accessible anywhere else within here. So if we go, and we just simply put in item, actually. And so what that does, these curly brackets are going to print the variable. If we had, this could be an object, so we could have sub-objects. And there you can see it. It's cool. So now we've got a list of berries, bunnies, and puppies. Now that's really cool. So let's say we wanted to add something to that list very quickly. What we can do is we can go, what do we want to do? We want to do an input box. So we go div, we go class, we go item. We'll throw in this, we'll go div. Actually, the better way to do this is the Ionic framework documentation is absolutely gold. So don't ever try and invent something. We'll jump back over here. We go to Ionic framework. No, we didn't kill it. That's good. We go to docs. And the great thing with this is we can start here and we go to your CSS and you just basically go up and down and pick the items that you need for your project. So in this case, we go into forms because we want some input boxes. So we can choose that style, or we can have that one. We can have them with the top and the bottom, or we can even have little floating labels there. So what we're going to do though, we'll just get the first one with the placeholder labels, and we can just simply copy. So notice how you got the list there. We can just simply copy this little chunk of code straight into our list, and bam, we've got ourselves an input box, which is nice and formatted and works with mobile. So that's really cool. So what we want to do, we want this list to be able to communicate with other things. So we go, we'll go new good item. And what we need to do, we need to give it something called an ng model. And that means that it's going to data bind anything that goes in this list into a variable that we can access. So we're going to call it new .item. Now the reason I'm doing this is fairly long-winded, but basically it helps sometimes to have an object instead of just using a plain string or a number. Okay, so we've got him, so we've got the new item, and we also want, when we type that new item in, we want to have a button. So again, let's jump back over to here, let's go to buttons, let's get ourselves a nice button. What do we want? We want the light one, let's go button positive. Cool, so we've got button positive, and we've got him, and what we want to do is when we click this guy, ng click, we want to go add item, and it's going to be the new .item. That's referenced just there above it. Cool. So we've got that, and then we're going to go call this add item. Now I often find that I actually prefer to move buttons outside of the list, especially when you start having colored backgrounds. I find it looks a little bit better, and it's just HTML and CSS, so it's nothing to stress out, be afraid of, or otherwise. We'll change this to good things. Okay. Good things. Class item and good things. Yeah, cool. I think that's pretty good. So now, what we need to do though, we need to give this add item a function. So we quickly have a look at what we've got. There we go. We've got add item. Now I actually want that to be a block button. So see how they're not stretched out? Let's duck on down. There you go, block buttons. So what we need to do is add the CSS class button block to it. So if you've used Bootstrap before, this is going to be really familiar. This kind of workflow. And it should be fairly low learning curve. Cool. Now we've got a bit of an app-looking thing happening. We've got our new good item. We can put in test. We can click it, but of course nothing happens because we haven't yet rigged up our add item function. So now where this add item function ends up is back in our controller. So if we go here, we go to scope.add item, and we give it a function. And we're going to call it have an item, and we do something about it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go $scope.goodthings.push. Chuck that item in there. That's awesome. And then we'll set $scope.new.item to nothing, so that it resets that text box. So notice here you don't have to do any direct object manipulation. We're just doing some good logic, and all of the data binding and other goodness is happening over here. Now let's cross our fingers this works. Okay, so, oh, hang on. We've got a linting error, so that's line 8. Okay, so line 8, we'll chuck a semicolon at the end of U. And we're cooking, and even completed our test, which is great. Which obviously we haven't done anything of yet. So now, we go test, we click add item, bam, we've got it. Now we can't set the property item of undefined. So we can do that, we can see that, there we go. Cool, new.item. So $scope.new is undefined. Now that's potentially because we haven't done it here. So scope.new equals empty object. We don't need to set the item. The item there will be set because it basically inherits from there. So we'll jump back over to here. New good item. Let's jump on the console, make sure we haven't got any issues, and we'll go test and go add item. Cool. We've got it all without any direct manipulation of any of the UI. We've got a bit of an app. It looks kind of cool. It's responsive, and that it's going to do things. Now let's just quickly add a little bit more functionality before we go on, so we can start removing some items from this list. Okay, so let's do a $scope.delete item. We'll do this function, and then just go give us the item and give us the array that it's attached to. Okay, so what we can do array.splice, and we do array.index of item, and we only want to remove one item, so that's cool. And we're going to chuck another thing on the end, otherwise it's going to hate us. Oh, and over here, there we go. Cool, all the linting worked. Now we've got this delete item thing, so we can hook up that function directly to the item in the ng repeat. So we can go here, we can go ng click, we can go delete item. Now we need what the item, so it's the item, and the array is good things. Cool. So we got that. Now let's try clicking on one of them. Great. And it works. No worries. Cool. So now we've got a situation where we can add and remove items from a list. We can basically do that. We've got those. Now, what if you needed to reuse? Actually, first of all, let's say we wanted to get this list of good things from somewhere else in a sort of central location, or we wanted to have add item and delete item to be able to be reused. Specifically, this delete item one. That's very sort of agnostic. You could use this delete item for any item in any array anywhere. Cool. So let's add, first of all, let's go out of here. We're going to close down our watcher and we're going to go back to the generator. So we go yo Cg-Angular and we go service. That's what we're going to be creating. Now service is like a singleton. The cool thing about services is it allows you to share code in a really modular format, and it also allows you to take variables from one place to another. So you can go from one view to another and it's going to actually keep that data. So let's have a look at this. So we're going to enter a name for it. So let's call this good things service. I like to call SVC on the end of it, so that way we'll know what file we're dealing with if we're just seeing names up the top. Where would you like to create the service? And service, that's great. Yeah, that folder doesn't exist. Let's do it. Cool. So now over here, we've got a new service directory. We've also got tests for the service. And we can do things about it. Now, what you'll see here from the service is nothing fancy. That's the name of it up there that we can use later to reference it. It's just an object, and then all it does is return an object. So I've seen from some of the other code that you're using very similar sort of patterns, and this one shouldn't be too stressful for you, I wouldn't think. So what we're going to do, let's give the service a property. We'll call it data, and we'll grab the data from over here, the good things data. Pull him out, chuck him over there. Cool. So now we've got an array of data. That's that service. Now, how do we access the good things service from our controller? Well, the trick is we go there, we copy and paste that name, chuck it up here where you see the scope, good things service. Now what we can do is we can go good things service.data. And we should be exactly where we were over here if we do a refresh. Do we have any issues? Oh, we haven't done grunt serve. Cool. All right, yeah, of course that's up there. Okay, we've got that, and you can see we haven't actually got any of that data over there. So that's awesome. So if we test, we can add that, and we can add this. So let's, we'll address that in a moment, what happened there. Now let's create another view so that we can see that code sharing in action. So it's yo, and we go Cg-Angular, and we go partial, and we'll call it view2. Where would we like it? We'd like it in view2. And we'd like to create it there. Cool. All right, so we've now got our second view up and running. There he is. And we have got all that. But now remember, of course, we haven't got the Ionic setup it's in there. So if we jump on over to him, we could say just copy and paste that code so we can get started. And then jump on down here. In fact, we'll actually leave it exactly the same for the moment. So we've got a fair bit of copied code there. And in view2, though, what we're going to do, we'll just go good things. It's good things service. And we jump on over here, and we will go $scope. Good things equals good things service dot data. That's the one. Now, if we jump back over to the view, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're on the other thing. So we'll just change the title of this to view2. So that we know we're dealing with the right thing. And also there's got to be obviously view to control so that we know what we're dealing with other gear. Cool. So let's do another grunt serve. Jump back on over here. Give it a go once. Now, if we ditch those and leave just puppies, and then we'll pull this out so we can have a look at this and we go to view2. You can see we've still got puppies. And we also get our nice little thing where we can go back and forth. View2. There we go. We add a new item in view2. Because we haven't got add item function rigged up. Cool. So you know there's definitely using a different one. We go new item. There. And go over here. And there's new item again. Cool. So that's awesome. So what you've done, you've just got some code you can share. So let's throw over the, in fact, let's throw the whole lot over here for the moment. So we'll pull him out. Actually, we'll just pull out the function. So add item, go over the good thing service. Add item is that function, and delete item. We jump back on over to him. I'm just going to grab that. Good thing service is there. Cool. So now we've got our add item and delete item there. We go back over to view 1, and we just can simply type good thing service dot add item and good thing service dot delete item. Give ourselves some semicolons, and we've got now very little code over here, so we can just grab some of this code and chuck it into view 2, and bam, we're sharing data. So we go back to view 1. There we go, and do a proper refresh just to make sure we're all good. Delete you, and then we go over to view 2. We've got puppies, and we do a test, and we can add an item. Scope is not defined. Okay, of course that didn't work. Just come back and have a look at it. So the extra functions that we've moved over to into add item reference the scope. Now the scope, because this is just it has no UI associated with it because it's a service. It has no scope variable. As you can see up there, we've got no scope there in the function. So it's going to be pretty tricky. We can write some bits and pieces to make add item work, but we'll just pull that out for the moment. And we'll jump back over to view 1. And we'll just throw him back in here. Cool. Get rid of you. You should be right. And then we'll throw you into view 2. Okay. Now, theoretically, we should be up and running because this isn't the main point of this. I'm not going to harp on it too much. There we go. We've got you. And now if we go over to view 2, we are in view 2. Let's just reset the whole thing. Get rid of you. View 2. Should be able to add it. Bam, we've got something there. Okay, there's a problem. It's not relevant. Right now, what we're going to do, we're going to get onto the directives side of things. Can't say. Okay, anyway. All right, so let's have a look at directives. Now, so far you've got yourself reusing some code, and you've got some shared code, some shared functions, and we're all happy about it. So what we need to do now is basically create what's called a directive. Now, directive is like a sort of a module of code that you can use, you can grab and throw somewhere else. So instead of us having to copy and paste all of the UI from view 1 to view 2, and then get all of the code and link all of that in, we can just simply have a simple HTML tag, which is you throw that down and it's just going to inject it. So let's create a directive. Cg-Angular directive. Directives are actually really powerful. They do more than just reuse code. They allow you to also use jQuery plugins and other bits and pieces. I'm going to give you a very, very short overview. This is the most complicated part of AngularJS, but if you know that you can reuse some things, you're going to be off on the right start. So we'll enter the name for it. We'll call it good things. Yeah, we do. So do we need an external HTML file? Absolutely. We need a template for it. Where would we like to create the directive? And the default place is perfect, so that way everyone's on the same page. We jump on over here. We go to directive. We've got good things, cool. And it's very, very similar, you'll see, to the views. We've got a HTML page, which has got not much in it. We have the directive bits and pieces. We have our own custom CSS, and we've got our own test suite. The tests are a little bit complicated here. We're not going to be going into any of that today anyway. So what you want to have a look at is the you've got here with your good things. So restrict E in AngularJS means restrict element. So it's like a HTML element or a HTML tag. So you've got your image tags, your H1 tags. Well, what this will do, this will enable, because we can in HTML5, a good things HTML tag. There can also be restrict A, that means restrict attribute. So you can have H1 with space. you know, or like image you've got source, in this case, you can end up adding an extra attribute in there, such as like the ng model, which is an attribute directive. Now, replace means are we going to replace the entire tag with this directive code? In this case, we're actually going to say no, but I'll show you why in a moment. The scope is exactly the same as your other scope variable that we've seen before. This is what we can attach. But what the whole point of this scope is, we can actually pass data in. So we can do data, and then we can do equals. And what that means we can data bind some data from the outside world into this directive so it can have access to the data. This can be pretty complicated. There's a number of different kinds of bindings as well. I'll just show you this one just for the sake of you being aware of it, which is the whole point of this today. In the template URL, there's the directive, good things, and good things HTML. So again, that's him here. That's his template. And then finally, we'll close down everything else for the moment. Finally, we've got this link thing. Now, link is the most standard thing that you're going to see everywhere. This allows you to manipulate a HTML, DOM object directly. But I found the biggest use for directives for me was just getting some reusable code. You're going to be using link if you're starting to try and convert jQuery plugins into AngularJS. I suggest that you try and avoid that as much as possible. Really, there's almost... The AngularJS ecosystem is huge. And often trying to find something which is done just the AngularJS way from the beginning is a lot easier than trying to shoehorn in a jQuery plugin. So, but what I'm going to show you is a nifty little thing that you'll see almost nowhere, that we can add a controller. We do our function, we do our scope, and we can add in our other module. How's capital G? Good thing source. Cool, and we can use him now to do our other bits and pieces. So what we want to do, obviously, is we want to go over to our view one. We want to grab our code that's all there. We're going to cut that out. We're going to go over to our good things directive, and we're going to delete that, throw that in there. And then over here, so that we can access it, we now need to type in good things. Yeah, lucky I've got my thing. And that there now is going to replace all of this code and all of the JavaScript with just simply that. So we can drop it in, and we can even do it. Let's just do another one down here. Good things. And we'll go H2, and we'll go second one. Awesome. Now the great thing is these things here don't talk to each other. They've got their own scope. There's their own little world that they live in within your program. Let's go and have a look at what we've got, and I think it's going to be broken. Besides the fact that we broke that. And we also need to run grunt surf. Ugh. Good things, okay. Okay. So duck back over. There we go, second one. And you notice though, we haven't got anything here. And we've got this odd little terrible error that tells you not much about it. What it does say is the good things directive, and good things.html, and you see over here TPL, I assume, stands for template. Now this one took me a little while to work out. What we need to do is we can get over here and we can wrap this in its own just empty div. That seems to solve the problem for some reason, because what I realized afterward is this empty div has, where are we over here, is for some reason is necessary so that we can use this replace attribute. So what we do though, if we delete, replace, save you, jump back on over here, try refreshing it, it's still going to work, but we can now go over here and we can just delete this div. Go down the bottom here, and delete you, save that, jump back over, it's all good, it's working. Now you'll notice that we haven't got any of the items. So of course they come from, not the good things. You can see how very quickly it becomes, we need to have that service there. So we've got our good things directive and our good things service. And in there we have our data and our delete item function. So how do we rig that up? Well, $scope.data equals good things good things service, we want good things service dot data. Okay, and $scope.delete item equals good things service dot delete item. Nice. So now, if we jump back over here, let's cross our fingers, we should have something. Compile error. Give me a moment on this one. Okay, so we've worked out what I did. Now, notice how you've got your scope.data here. Is the good thing service.data. And what we have up here is in our scope.data. So we've already declared scope.data. Let's just call this message. And then that should solve our problem. Cool, we still haven't got anything, but we haven't got anything there. Scope.data is good thing service.data. No, it was scope.goodthings. Cool, and we got that there, and I'll show you where that good things was and how I know. So you've got good things in your directive, and then you've got the good things template. And sure enough, if you remember back to our ng repeaters, items and good things. If we wanted that to be data, it could just be data. But then, of course, we're going to have to change that over there as well. So let's just move it back to good things. Okay, cool. So now what we've got is we've got a bit of code. This is actually pretty exciting. We've got a bit of code down here that talks to a bit of code up here. Now, like I said, they live in their own little world, but what doesn't live in its own little world is that singleton. So let's click on berries to delete it. That was a bit anticlimactic. Hang on a sec. Okay, so we're back. It helps if we uncomment the delete item, and then we jump back on over to here, and then we click on berries. Cool. Now you'll notice though, because that scope is shared with that data between bunnies and puppies, so if we go here, we go test, and we go add item. We haven't rigged up add item yet, so we'll do that in a moment. That it's going to add one or two things, every single time to the thing. If you wanted to have your own content, so what you'll find is if, let's say we didn't want to have it in the service anymore, so we can move this data over to here. So we're just getting out, leave that with an empty array so we don't have any issues, and replace him with this data. And now we refresh. There we go, we've got the same data, but because it's living inside the service, we can get rid of that one there, and that one there won't be affected. Cool, so what we're going to do though, we're going to put it back to that service. We'll get the add item rigged up. So we got that there, I'll go back here, good thing service, what was it, this data. Okay. So, if we go back to our view, we've got him, we've got the good things, we've got the view. So we've got that. Oh, we need to go to our views controller and we need to pull out this add item function. Pull that out, go back over to, where are we? Good things controller. Throw that in, got our add item. We have the item that's going to be passed in. We can push it into our good things scope there. And we've got the new item that we can set. So now it should work. And let's cross our fingers it does because we had that funny thing last time. We go test and we go add item. And there we go. Nice. And you'll notice though, because again we're sharing the scope and that's the same record from over in the other singleton, that we've got it moving into both systems. So that's pretty cool. You'll also notice here that sometimes the Ionic framework has an issue where you can't scroll. There is a function where you're able to do a refresh size thing so we can recalculate the height of the whole page. We can find that, ask me if you need help. That one's pretty easy. So anyway, so cool, we can delete all these bits and pieces and we've got nothing. And that's really awesome because now, like you've seen, we can get rid of this, but we can also jump on over here. We don't need any of this code anymore. We don't even need you. So we've got that in view 2. We can do the same thing. We can delete all of the code. And we can go delete, come on, where are we? Get rid of it. And we can go into the HTML in view 2 and get rid of this whole system. And what's it? It's good things. That's it. So now we've got view 1. We refresh you. No issues. And then if we go view 2, it should have the same thing with only one of them. There they are. Go back to good things. It's just puppies. So it's all awesome. So look, I think that's about it. I guess one last thing, if you're still hanging on, I'm going to add a button to navigate between the two views. This is just an Ionic thing, something you'll probably pick up between the two, but at least then we can go back and forth. So what we want to do is we want to go over here, we want to go scope, and we'll do state. Now this is the Angular UI router. There's two different ones. There's the Angular built-in one, and the Angular UI router. Now the Ionic framework uses the UI router by default, so we're going to use that one. And when I set up the Yeoman generator, it asks which one we'd like to use. So it's already ready to integrate well with the Ionic framework. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to scope, and we're going to go to, let's call it change state. Equals. Now, I'm going to do a function. Because we know which state we're on, we're going to have to copy and paste this between the different views. It doesn't really matter. So we're going to have change state. We're going to go $state.go, and let's go to, I think it's view 2, it's just all it's called. And where we can check that, let's save here, we'll put that there. This is gonna love me. And another one down below. Now we go over here to app. You can see the state name, there we go, view 1, view 2. So, go back to here, got view 2, awesome. And then we go back over to the view 2 controller, and we'll put in a very similar one, that, and we go and add our state dependency up there. Okay, so the state's the built-in UI router state situation, and it can control all the bits and pieces. So you just need to do state.go and go view 1. Awesome. Okay, so now that we've got those two rigged up, we just need to give it a button. So let's go back over here. We've got the first one and we've got the second one, and we'll give it a button down the bottom. Button. Let's do it the right way. Let's go back over to Ionic and just copy and paste something. So block buttons. Okay, so we'll go to the block button here. So we want a block button. And the color of that button, we don't want positive because we've already got positive buttons. Let's get the red one, the button assertive. So we change him from button positive to button assertive. There we go. All right, and we'll just go next screen. We'll call that. What we want to do though is we want to do an ng click. We want to do change state. I'll just leave that empty, and off we go. So now, theoretically, we should have that one down there. Cool, and we can go next screen, and we're on view 2. Now let's just add, just for the sake of completeness, let's add another one over to view 2. You can see it, so we go underneath good things, add another button in, we've got our change state, go next screen. We'll just go back. We'll just call back to screen 1. Nice. There we go. I'm going to go back to screen 1. There it is, next screen. And what you'll notice, because we're using the state controller, it even automatically does all of our back and forward buttons for us. It can be a little bit annoying, and hence why I need to do that whole refresh business in the beginning. There we go. The first one it lands on, it tracks it, and it's all built in. So if you start on a state with, as view 2 when you're testing, and it's not going to give you the back button that it would normally have. You don't need to program those in. They're just there, and they come out of the box. So let's quickly delete everything and go, hey, I think we have services and directives. Chuck him on, and let's make sure he's all the way back over here on view 1. There he is, both times, and then we can delete it. All right, look, thank you very much. If you've got any questions, please shoot them across. I think this is one of these things where, hopefully now, because you can see it a number of times as well, you might be able to use it as a reference to go back and forth. And should give you a pretty good building block now to start developing the app. We're using reusable components, reusable code, and reusable functions. And hopefully it's going to take a lot of the pain out of you doing direct object manipulation on the HTML DOM using the Angular framework. So anyway, like I said, so yeah, give me a bell if you need a hand with anything. All right, thank you very much.